This guy makes $1.3 million a day selling tacos, wings, and roast beef. And it all started with a side hustle. His name is Greg Flynn, and he's the biggest franchise operator in the USA. The guy owns thousands of restaurants: Applebee's, Taco Bell, Panera Bread, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and he was able to do it because he just kept running into problems, kept having doors slammed in his face. I'm going to break it all down for you, tell you exactly how he did it, and I'll give you 3 big lessons you can take away right now and use in your business. My name's Jon Davids. I'm the founder of Influicity, a marketing agency where we generate millions of dollars every month for brands like these. If you're a business builder, this one's for you. Let's go. So rewind to 1999. Greg's a real estate guy in California, and he's got a side hustle. He's managing a couple restaurants for his dad. So his dad owns a couple Burger King restaurants, and Greg helps out. He's the part-time manager. And he's noticing something kind of weird. You see, restaurants are typically a crappy business. Greg knows this. He knows that restaurants are bad, but these BK restaurants that his dad owns, they're printing cash. They got juicy profits, and Greg starts digging a little deeper. He starts studying why. And he realizes it's because they're franchise restaurants. They're not normal restaurants, but they're restaurants with deeply built systems in the franchise world. So he starts keeping his eyes open for opportunities of his own. And before long, he spots a deal that it's going to change everything for him. So there are these 8 Applebee's restaurants for sale in Seattle. They're owned by a guy Greg doesn't know, but Greg wants these restaurants. So he picks up the phone and cold calls the owner, offering to buy them all for $14 million. The owner says yes, and they have a deal. There's just one problem. Our boy Greg doesn't have $14 million. So he throws in a bit of cash of his own. He raises a whole bunch of debt from the bank, which I'll get to in a second. And now he owns 8 Applebee's locations in Seattle. It's time to get to work. So Greg goes into operator mode. He's cutting costs. He's improving operations. He's training managers. He's watching every number. He knows a little bit of this from his days running his dad's restaurants, but he's learning a lot on the job. And it's working. Within a year, he picks up a few more locations, and then a few more, and a few more. By 2003, Greg is sitting at over 200 spots, making him one of the biggest Applebee's franchisees in America. And then he hits a wall. You see, Greg wants to keep growing. He wants to keep getting more Applebee's, but Applebee's HQ doesn't want one guy owning too many shops. They won't let him buy any more. The guy who was CEO of Applebee's at the time has actually said in interviews since then that he had just been through a huge mess with another powerful franchise group that looked a lot like Greg's, and he wasn't about to let a new guy come in and buy up a huge portion of his franchise locations and have all kinds of control. It creates too much centralized risk. So he slams the door on our boy Greg. Absolutely not, dude. You cannot have any more Applebee's locations. But think about it. Greg is sitting on a collection of restaurants now doing over $500 million a year in revenue, and he's still a young guy. He doesn't want to stop now. So his only option is to start hunting for other brands. After all, he's got the playbook. He knows how to run these franchise quick service restaurants. It's got to work with other names, right? You bet. So he starts picking up Taco Bell locations, then Arby's, then Panera Bread, then Pizza Hut, then Wendy's. He buys them all, hundreds of locations, using the same formula over and over, rinse and repeat. We got real estate, operations, hiring, training, service, all the good stuff. By 2025, Flynn Group is the largest franchise operator in the USA. They got 3,000 locations and over $5 billion in total annual sales. Greg built this crazy business by relentlessly pushing through constraints, constantly growing with one hand tied behind his back. No money? Go out and borrow it. No more Applebee's? Go up and buy the competitors. Restaurants are a crappy business? Not when you can run them as well as he can. The builders who succeed plow through these kind of bottlenecks. That's how a guy in California is making $1.3 million a day selling tacos, wings, and roast beef. And I want to go even deeper into this idea of the constraint and constraints as a competitive advantage, because that's really what they are. You see it across so many different kinds of businesses. This one's a perfect example. Every business has constraints at every single level. Doesn't matter how big you are. You'll have money constraints, you'll have people constraints, you'll have market constraints, you'll have competitor constraints, legal constraints, regulatory constraints, logistical constraints. And the primary job of any business leader, any builder, is to push through those constraints, identify what they are, and systematically pick them off one by one. Let's just look at the story of Greg Flynn. The first constraint, and I didn't spend much time talking about this because it wasn't even the most interesting, but the first constraint was money. That very first group of 8 restaurants in Seattle that cost him $14 million, he didn't have $14 million. Now, a lot of people in my comments when I posted this on social media assume that because his dad owned a couple Burger King shops, that the guy was rich and well-connected. Well, no, he wasn't. He was probably well-educated. He wasn't poor. But your dad owning 2 BK shops doesn't exactly put you in the top 0.1%. It certainly doesn't give you $14 million in liquid cash that you can drop into a speculative deal. This was a risky move. The guy didn't have any background owning or operating franchise restaurants other than his dad owning 2 Burger King shops. Buying up 8 Applebees in a different state was a risk. So how did he get past that first constraint? Well, he got his hands on a deal through a cold call. He literally just cold called the owner and negotiated that deal, negotiated the price, and then he went to the bank for the financing. Now, of course, he had specialized skills. He was already in finance. I think he was in real estate. And so he knew how to raise capital. He knew about debt. But the asset he was collateralizing was different. It wasn't real estate. It was a franchise. So he had to learn a new skill. Again, just getting past that first constraint is something most people wouldn't do. Greg had to secure $12.8 million in debt. And then he had to raise another $1.2 million in equity in cash. That's $14 million. And that's how he paid for that first set of 8 Applebees. So you can write that off as a rich kid just getting something done, but believe me, I've raised money, I've worked with companies doing hundreds of millions in revenue and needing to raise more capital to go public and whatnot. It is not easy to just raise money for a new asset class that you don't have any experience in. This is a high barrier to entry. A lot of people wouldn't even take a second look at doing this. So if you're at a place in your business and you're saying, this is too hard, I'm not educated enough, I'm not well connected enough, I don't have the resources, it's all bullshit, guys. Those are limiting beliefs that we all have, and you tell yourself stuff like that to make you comfortable when you know that you're actually not good enough to level up. And that's the cold, hard truth. It sucks to hear, but it's true. If you're not where you want to be, it means that you lack the skills to get there. But most likely, in all likelihood, you can get those skills or you can partner with people who have those skills. So that was the number one constraint. He wasn't able to get his hands on the capital. Then he had to actually figure out how to turn this business profitable. And he did that. Then when Applebee says, no, you can't have any more locations, he has to get past that. Every single step along the way here, a lot of people would have tapped out. They would have said, we're good, we're done. Keep in mind, this guy was already over $500 million in revenue just on the Applebee's locations, and he still wasn't going to slow down. You know, the story reminds me a lot, actually, of Jim Pattison at Pattison Group out in Vancouver, Canada. So when Jim got started, he spent about 25 years in the auto dealership world. He owned a lot of car dealerships. And the problem with car dealerships is that they're very limited. They don't trade hands very often. You can't get your hands on a new dealership unless somebody who owns it wants to sell it, and they rarely do. They pass on through generations. So in order to continue growing over the decades, he had to expand into other businesses. So he starts buying radio stations, he buys a billboard company, food, grocery, retail. And the key to take out of all of this is that constraints are a natural part of any business. As you grow further and further up the food chain, you will start to hit bigger and bigger ceilings. It's a feature, not a bug. So whether you're on day one just trying to get that first product off the ground, or you're trying to get past 1 million, 10 million, 20, 30, 100 million, you're always going to hit those ceilings. And the only question is, can you develop the skill set to get past it? Businesses that keep growing are the ones that figure out how to crack those bottlenecks. Now, another part of this story that I really love is just figuring out what business you're in. So when we talk about the restaurant franchise business, the thing you sell is food, but the business you're in is really a systems and operations business. You have to know how to run a very rigorous type of business: logistics, finances, labor, real estate. That's the moat of the business. That's the activity that puts you ahead of everybody else. It's not being able to make the best hamburger or the best roast beef sandwich. In fact, there are probably lots of other places that can make you a better hamburger, a better roast beef sandwich, or chicken wings or tacos or pizzas. But the systems and the operations are key. This is the case in lots of businesses. For example, if you're in the e-commerce space, you might sell clothes or pet supplies or whatever, but the business that you're really in is running Meta ads or running TikTok ads. If you can't do that, then there's no company. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If you're in the personal training business, you're a fitness coach, you're actually in the customer acquisition and retention business. If you're in the enterprise software world, you need good software, of course, but you also must have a tremendous enterprise sales and services team. The software itself isn't enough to get Toyota and Coca-Cola to sign on as a client. They need the enterprise org for it to work. So figure out what the business is behind your product and make sure you're focusing on the right things, not just the things you like to do, but the stuff that's going to drive the business forward. And that takes me to something that never gets old. I feel like I've said this 100 times, but it never gets old. There's no such thing as a bad business, just a bad business model. People notoriously say that restaurants are a bad business, and for good reason. They can be a very bad business. But the reality is that's not actually true. Most restaurant operators just know how to make good food, and they don't know much about the business of restaurants. The food is like 30%, and the business model is like 70%. And I like making that point because a lot of entrepreneurs and business builders will spend so much time thinking about what industry to get into. And certainly some industries are a little better than others. I wouldn't recommend going into an industry that's slowing down. I don't recommend starting a newspaper in 2026. But a much more important question to answer is, what business model attracts you? What kind of customer acquisition do you want to be doing? Do you want to be doing phone sales? Do you want to be having a business where people just come to you that's very much driven on word of mouth and referrals? Do you want to be doing steak dinners? Do you want to be running Facebook ads or Google ads? What's your labor strategy? What's your financing strategy? Do you want to go out and raise a lot of money and have that be the focus of what you do? Or do you want to be serving people every day? Do you want to have one standardized option, or do you want to be providing customized and flexible options all the time? By the way, none of these are right or wrong answers. It's what suits you best as the builder, as the entrepreneur, as the person doing it. And make no mistake, all this stuff is up to you. The business model is up to you. It doesn't matter what the guy next door is doing. In fact, you shouldn't even be watching the guy next door, because chances are he doesn't know what he's doing. Most people have no idea how to run a business. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to copy them. Focus on your business model. Pressure test it. Make sure it makes sense, and if it doesn't, change it. You have the freedom to do that. Get that right, and any business can be a good business. That's the story of Greg Flynn, the $5 billion, 3,000 location franchise OG. What a story. My name's Jon Davids. Get my best stuff to your inbox at jondavids.com.